Hi there! This is an educational video series that talks about how you use the Flexique products. If you haven't seen the first two, I'd suggest you go to the Flexique Fridays playlist and pick up episode 1, which talks about why you should use Flexique, and episode 2, which introduces using Flexique by itself. We're going to start breaking these down into smaller sections to make it easier for you to view. This one's going to address some additional uses for Flexique, including the introduction of an interesting tool that will help you spread Flexique with an even thickness. So let's dig in. If you remember, Flexique in its natural state is clear. You can see through it. You can also adjust its flexibility by the amount of the bee packet you put into it. Less bee, stiffer result. That makes this product set a really good choice for creating windows for your car or for your house, or plastic bags, or stained glass, or even printing on it. Now if you print on it though, you want to make sure that its thickness is pretty standard all the way across. When we were looking at ways to do that, one of our good friends and pastry chefs, Ryan Stipp, said, why don't you use a Raplette? We looked at him and said, what's a Raplette? Do you know what a Raplette is? Well, what it is a tool that the chocolatiers use to spread chocolate on a sheet in an even thickness. I've got one here I want to show you. Okay, this is a Raplette. You can see that it's steel. It's got a movable arm which adjusts to the width of the sheet that you're going to produce. The inner metal is one piece. The outer bars are controlled by these knobs that you unscrew and you lift to create a gap back here that allows you to then pull the whole mechanism across your sheet and result in an even thickness sheet. Now I'm going to demonstrate that real quickly here. I've got an acetate sheet. Okay, that's the first thing. Acetate is just an overhead. You can pick it up at any office supply store. It's a transparency film. Okay, I cut this one in half so that I can show you very easily. We're going to pour Flexique right in the middle of the Raplette and then just drag it. I need some more here. There you go. And you can see that that leaves a very even film of Flexique across that acetate sheet. Now what I did to keep it from moving is I used some double stick tape right at the edge to keep it flat so that it doesn't drag as you're pulling it, just in case. It doesn't do that all the time, but sometimes. So then what you can do is trim it, and away you go. I actually did that earlier, and I wanted to show you the result. Move this out of the way, and there it is. I actually spread this one just a little bit thicker than normal, but you can see that it's clear. It's on an acetate sheet. Then you can stick the acetate sheet into a printer and then print on it. So Flexique also picks up textures for any texture sheet that you use. I've got a snakeskin mat here. I'm going to show you very, very briefly how you can just pour Flexique onto the mat. You can spread it out with a spatula or a brush so that it gets into all of the grooves and picks up the textures. And then when it dries, you can luster it, which is what I've done in this particular snakeskin mat that I've done earlier, luster it with a little bit of the Crystal Colors Golden Chocolate. And because the product is clear, the color will show through to the other side. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This was a piece of Flexique that I put into the mat, covered it with that golden chocolate, and let it sit in the mat. Now what happened, we found out, is if you let it sit in the mat overnight, it will pull the product into the design, into the impression, so that now you've got an impression on both sides of the mat. This side was the side that was lustered, and you can see that the impression comes all the way through. The back side is the side that you can see the colors through, and because the golden chocolate has the various colorations, you can see the various colors come through all the way, and the texture is there. Okay, let's talk about cutting. That's another thing you can do with Flexique. You can cut Flexique when it's fairly fresh with a spatula, with a pizza cutter, when it's cured, you can actually trim a design with scissors. You can use any kind of shape cutters. Or you can actually use a tool that Tico has that allows you to cut even size swaths for fringe. Makes it really easy to cut even strips that way. So if you're making things like fringe or laces or shoestrings or tassels, things of that nature, that comes in pretty handy because you can cut a lot of them at a time. What I've done is cut also a heart shape very nicely and lustered it. So you've got a luster, a red luster, shiny effect for it. I've done this just a little while ago, so it's still fairly fresh, and you can see how nicely it cuts and comes out, and the same thing with the strips. The other thing you can do with these strips is to use them as ribbons along the bottom of each tier, or even around your cake board. You know sometimes how difficult it is to find the right color of ribbon to use to match your cake? So why don't you just color Flexique the color you need for your cake, and then cut it into the right widths and use it for your ribbon for each of the tiers or even the cake board. Now remember that you can take these and attach them to each other with a little bit of Flexique at the joint, and now you've got a very long piece of ribbon that you can wrap around your cake board very nicely. Remember that we showed that Flexique is flexible. It's been lab tested, and we have the results in a video documented in the description down below. So your strips are flexible. So the other thing you can do with the strips of Flexique that you cut is create fringe for a graduation cap, tassel, or anything, and you can even weave them together for an interesting effect. So we talked about ribbons and bows. I've got one here that was created with Flexique over a texture sheet, then cut into strips and assembled with Flexique glue to hold it in place. I've used some supports to make the bow stand out a bit, or you can use less of the bee packet to make the bow stand out, make it a little bit stiffer to hold its shape better, or you can cut your strips and then put fine wire along the edges of your strips, and then when you assemble your ribbon, the bows will actually stand out very prominently. So there's some tips for you. one of the other things you can do with Flexique edible fabric is to create pleats. You know how hard that is to do with fondant or gum paste. You have the issue with breakage at the seams. Flexique is very flexible and durable and withstands any kind of stress, so you don't have to worry about it breaking. If you're using cured Flexique, though, you want to use some Flexique glue at those joints and clamp them together until it dries, so you have a good bond in place. Then you can remove the clamp and apply the pleats to your cake however you want without any issue. So that's it for this one. We'll finish up next time with some additional coloring options. So it's goodbye for now.